Have you ever wondered how to get a long-term residence permit in the European Union? Well, you're in the right place to find out. The EU long-term residence permit is a gem for non-EU nationals, opening up a world of possibilities. It's essentially a key that unlocks the door to the culturally rich and diverse European Union, allowing you to live, work, and study there for an extended period of time. Imagine waking up to the stunning architecture of Barcelona, working in the buzzing city of Berlin, or studying the exquisite arts in Florence. With this permit, you can do all that and more. It's not just a permit, it's an opportunity to enrich your life with new experiences and broaden your horizons. But how do you get your hands on this golden ticket? Well, stick around as we're about to dive into the process of obtaining this permit. Now let's dive into the process of obtaining this permit. Before you start your application, it's important to know if you meet the criteria. Let's dive right into the eligibility criteria for the EU long-term residence permit. Firstly, one of the key requirements is residency. You must have lived in an EU country for 5 continuous years. This means you should have been a legal resident without any major interruptions for this period. Interruptions should not exceed 6 consecutive months or 10 months in total within the 5-year span. Keep in mind, time spent as a student or a trainee won't be fully counted towards this requirement. Next, let's talk about financial stability. You must have stable, regular, and sufficient financial resources to support yourself and your family, if applicable, without resorting to the host country's welfare system. The exact amount considered sufficient varies depending on the cost of living in the specific country, as well as your personal situation, such as family size and overall health. It's essential to research this thoroughly based on your specific circumstances. In addition to financial resources, comprehensive health insurance is a must. This insurance should cover all risks normally covered for the country's own nationals. Again, the specifics may vary from one country to another, so it's advisable to check with the relevant authorities in the country where you plan to apply. It's worth noting that some countries may have additional requirements such as language proficiency or integration measures. These requirements are designed to ensure that long-term residents are sufficiently integrated into the society and culture of the host country. So, to sum it up, for an EU long-term residence permit, you need to have lived in the EU for 5 continuous years, have stable and regular financial resources, and hold comprehensive health insurance. Additional requirements may also apply depending on the specific country. Once you meet these requirements, you can proceed to the application process. But remember, each case is unique, and it's always best to seek legal advice or assistance from a professional to ensure you have the best chance of success. Now that you know the eligibility criteria, it's time to tackle the application process. The application process for the EU long-term residence permit is a journey that requires both patience and meticulousness. It's a multi-step procedure, and while the specifics might vary slightly from one EU country to another, the general process remains quite consistent. The first step is all about preparation. You'll need to gather the necessary documents to support your application. This typically includes your passport, proof of continuous and legal residence in the EU country for 5 years, evidence of stable and regular financial resources, and proof of comprehensive health insurance cover in the EU country. You may also need to provide additional documents depending on your circumstances, such as a marriage certificate or proof of employment. Once you have all your documents ready, the next step is to fill out the application form. This form requires detailed information about your personal circumstances, residence history, employment, and financial situation. It's crucial to provide accurate and complete information, as any inconsistencies or missing details can lead to delays or even rejection of your application. After completing the application form, you'll need to submit it, along with all the supporting documents, to the appropriate authority in your EU country of residence. This could be the immigration office, a dedicated EU residence permit department, or another relevant authority. Now, when it comes to submission, there are generally 2 ways. You can do it in person, or in some countries, you can submit your application online. Remember, it's not just about handing over the documents, you'll also need to pay an application fee. The fee amount varies among EU countries, so ensure you have the correct amount for the country where you're applying. Once you've submitted your application, you've crossed a major hurdle. But hold on, the journey isn't over yet. Now comes the waiting period. The decision on your application can take anywhere from a few weeks to several months, depending on the country and how busy they are with applications. During this time, it's important to be patient and not to worry too much. You might be asked to attend an interview or provide additional documents during this period. If so, respond promptly and provide whatever is requested. This will help keep the process moving smoothly. Remember, every step of this process is important. From gathering the right documents to filling out the form accurately, from submitting the application to patiently waiting for the decision, each phase requires your attention and diligence. And while this process might seem daunting, keep in mind the reward at the end of the journey, the privilege of living long-term in an EU country, enjoying the same rights as nationals in many areas. After submitting your application, it's time to wait for the decision. You've submitted your application, but what happens when you get your permit? How long is it valid for? Let's delve into these important questions. Once you've received your EU long-term residence permit, it usually remains valid for a period of 5 years. That's right, a whole 5 years of exploring, working, and living in the European Union. Now you might be thinking, what happens after these 5 years? Well, you're in luck. The EU long-term residence permit can be renewed. To do this, you'll need to apply for renewal at least 2 months before your current permit expires. This gives the authorities enough time to process your application and issue your renewed permit. The process is quite similar to the initial application process, but don't worry, you've already done it once, so you'll be a pro this time around. But there's more. After 5 years of continuous legal residence in the EU, you may be eligible to apply for permanent residence. This is a big step and can open up even more opportunities for you in the EU. It's like taking your relationship with the European Union to the next level. Remember, these 5 years must be continuous and legal. This means you need to reside in the EU without major interruptions and comply with all the laws and regulations. So be sure to stay on the right side of the law and adhere to the conditions of your permit. With the EU long-term residence permit, you have the opportunity to immerse yourself in a new culture, learn a new language, and broaden your horizons. It's not just a permit, it's a ticket to a life-changing experience. And always remember, each country within the EU may have its own specific rules and requirements for permit renewal and applying for permanent residence. So make sure you're familiar with the rules of the country you're residing in. With this permit, the EU becomes your home away from home. So, embrace this opportunity and make the most of your time in the European Union. So, to recap the journey to an EU long-term residence permit, let's revisit some key points we've discussed. The eligibility for this permit is based on a few fundamental criteria. Remember, you must have lived legally in an EU country for at least 5 continuous years. It's also important to have a stable and regular income to support yourself and any dependents, along with comprehensive sickness insurance. Understanding the application process is also crucial. It begins with submitting an application form to the immigration authorities in the EU country where you live. The form should be filled out accurately, and you must provide all necessary documents. These might include a valid passport, proof of legal and continuous residence, evidence of sufficient financial means, and a clean criminal record. Keep in mind that each country may have additional requirements. The validity of the permit is another significant point. Once issued, the EU long-term residence permit remains valid as long as you live in the country. However, if you leave the country for more than 12 consecutive months, the permit may no longer be valid. But the beauty of the EU long-term residence permit is that it offers non-EU nationals an incredible opportunity to live and work in the EU. It provides a sense of security, allowing you to make long-term plans and fully immerse yourself in a new culture, new experiences, and new opportunities. So, whether you're an expat looking to settle down, or a wanderer seeking a new adventure, the EU long-term residence permit could be the golden ticket you've been waiting for. It's not just about bureaucracy and paperwork, it's about opening doors to a new life, a new home, and a world of opportunities. Remember, every journey begins with a single step. The process might seem daunting, but don't let it deter you. Start preparing, start planning, and before you know it, you'll be on your way. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. Your step towards a long-term residence permit in the EU starts today. Good luck.